On July 15th, 2020, something unusual started happening on Twitter. Within just a few hours, dozens of the world's most powerful accounts were suddenly compromised. Elon Musk, Barack Obama, Bill Gates, all of them began posting the same message: send Bitcoin and get double in return. It looked like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get rich. Within minutes, millions of people had seen the message. Some even acted on it, but this wasn't a real giveaway or a special promotion. Those tweets were part of a carefully planned attack that didn't involve hacking into complicated systems. Instead, it worked by tricking people into doing what the attackers wanted. This is the Twitter Bitcoin scam, where $120,000 was stolen in no time. Even though it's now called X, we'll still use the word Twitter. By 2020, Twitter had grown into one of the most influential communication platforms in the world, with approximately 350 million active monthly users. But more importantly, certain accounts carried far more weight than others. Verified accounts, the ones marked with the blue check, were popular and trusted. That small symbol showed that the account was authentic and that the voice behind it was real. When a public figure posted something, people didn't question it. They believed it. And that's exactly what made this attack so dangerous. Because this time, the messages came from accounts the world already trusted. Some of the compromised accounts belonged to Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and even companies like Apple. There were also cryptocurrency firms affected, including Binance and Gemini. But what exactly was in the messages? Well, they promised anyone who sent Bitcoin to a specific wallet address would get back double the amount. Everyone saw tweets like, "Due to COVID-19, we are giving back over $10 million in Bitcoin. All payments sent to our address below will be sent back doubled." So how did the scammers get access to verified Twitter accounts? As investigators began digging deeper, a more concerning picture started to emerge. Reports showed that over 1,500 Twitter employees and their partners had access to special tools that could control accounts. These tools could reset passwords, change email addresses, and even take over profiles. They were not hidden features, but were created to help with support and managing accounts. But with that access came risk. Former employees shared that even years before the attack, some workers had used these tools to check on well-known users. They looked at things like IP addresses and general locations, not to make money, but more out of curiosity. At the time, it didn't seem like a serious threat, but it exposed something critical. The system relied heavily on trust. According to former members of Twitter's own security teams, warnings about the possibility of an insider-driven attack had been raised as early as 2015. The concern was clear. If the wrong person gained access, the consequences could be massive. But those warnings, they claimed, weren't prioritized. Instead, focus shifted toward growth and revenue, and for years, the vulnerability remained quietly in the background, until someone finally exploited it. The attackers didn't break into the system using complex code or advanced hacking tools. Instead, they went after the people behind it. Through a series of social engineering attacks, the hackers targeted Twitter employees. For your information, it is the kind of attack that doesn't rely on technical weaknesses, but on human error. Somehow, the hackers manipulated the employees into handing over access to internal systems. This way, the attackers gained exactly what they needed: credentials that opened the door to powerful administrative tools. And once they were inside, the rules changed. Twitter itself confirmed that this was a coordinated social engineering attack. The company acted fast to stop the damage. They locked down the affected accounts, limited employee access to internal tools, and started an investigation to figure out what happened. But by that time, the attackers had already done their part. The initial breach began on July 15, 2020. Hackers broke into and took over 130 verified Twitter accounts. Once inside, they created fake tweets, like the ones we shared earlier in the video, to trick people. By the end of the scam, they had taken more than $121,000 in Bitcoin from over 400 victims. The attackers didn't leave this money sitting in one place. The stolen Bitcoin was moved from 3 original addresses into many other cryptocurrency wallets. Almost all of the illegal money ended up in 12 wallets, where it stayed untouched. In the world of cryptocurrency, movement creates trails, and staying still can sometimes be the safer option. But not all of it stayed hidden. A small portion of the stolen Bitcoin was transferred to known accounts that investigators could potentially trace back to real individuals. And that single detail gave law enforcement their first real lead. 2 days later, on July 17th, it was revealed that 22% of the stolen funds, equivalent to 2.89 Bitcoins, had been transferred to a known address associated with the Wasabi wallet. Designed to hide the trail of transactions, this type of wallet was well known for making tracking nearly impossible. It was often the tool of choice for people trying to cover up illegal activities. The investigation now demanded specialized tools and expert analysis. So investigators turned to a company known for tracing cryptocurrency movements. Using advanced tracking techniques, they began mapping the path of the stolen funds step by step, wallet by wallet. What they found was complex, but not invisible. Every transaction left behind a trace. Every movement added another piece to the puzzle. And slowly, a pattern began to emerge. A pattern that changed everything. Because for the first time since the attack began, it looked like the people behind it weren't completely hidden anymore. But by July 23rd, the situation had become far more complicated. Investigators were still tracking the stolen Bitcoin, but much of it had already started to disappear. Analysts reported that a massive portion of the funds had been cashed out or exchanged. It's a common tactic in cryptocurrency laundering. At this stage, it wasn't even clear if the original hackers still controlled the money. The funds could have already been sold to anonymous buyers or moved beyond reach. But even in that uncertainty, the transaction patterns revealed something important. The money was being moved strategically. Large amounts of money were broken into smaller pieces. These pieces were sent to many wallets. Later, they were put back into single addresses. This was done on purpose to create confusion and hide the money. By July 30th, investigators had a clearer but more frustrating picture. Most of the stolen funds from the Twitter hack had already been converted, spent, or pushed through multiple layers of transactions. At this stage, tracing the money became significantly harder. One reason these schemes are hard to stop is how cryptocurrency is tracked. Small transactions are sent over and over to many wallets. This helps avoid getting noticed right away. Each piece is too small or normal to raise alarms, and the attackers knew this. To make tracking even more difficult, they began using crypto mixing services. These platforms are designed to break the visible connection between where the money comes from and where it ends up. Once funds pass through them, the original trail becomes blurred. At that point, the money is no longer clearly tied to the Twitter hack at all, or even to a single identifiable owner. It had effectively been absorbed into a system built to hide it. So, who was behind this scam? After a series of investigations, the United States Department of Justice announced arrests on July 31st, 2020. 3 people were charged for being involved in the scam. One of them, a 19-year-old from the United Kingdom, faced charges for conspiracy to commit wire fraud money laundering, and hacking into protected computers. Another, a 22-year-old from Florida, was charged with helping access these computers. A third individual, Graham Ivan Clark, 17 years old, from Hillsborough County, Florida, was also charged in connection with the scam. At first, the charges were sealed in juvenile court because of his age.
All right, no ordinary teenager. That is how police and prosecutors are describing Graham Clark. He is the local teen whose cyber crimes began when other kids were still playing video games.
That's right. His crimes affecting some of the world's most powerful people, though. You may remember the story. Fox 13's Gloria Gomez tonight continues her series, Tampa Bay True Crime Files, and tonight she examines the case of a kid genius.
However, he was later charged as an adult with 30 felony counts. These charges included organized fraud, communications fraud, identity theft, and hacking. Clark pleaded not guilty to the charges on August 4, 2020. But in March 2021, he accepted a plea deal. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. Because of his age, he was sentenced under Florida's Youthful Offender Act. This law reduces the penalties for felons under the age of 21. His sentence also allowed him to spend some time in a military-style boot camp. Another person, a 16-year-old from Massachusetts, was also suspected of being involved in the scam. The FBI identified him during their investigation. Federal agents searched his belongings in late August 2020 with a warrant. However, no charges have been filed against him at this time. Now, let's talk about the immediate reaction after the incident. Affected Twitter users were unable to post new tweets and could only retweet content. This caused problems for organizations like NBC News, which had to create a temporary, non-verified account to keep updating its audience. Even critical services like the National Weather Service faced issues. For example, the Weather Service office in Lincoln, Illinois, couldn't tweet a tornado warning at first. Joe Biden's campaign team told CNN that they were talking with Twitter about the problem and said his account had been locked to keep it safe. Companies and platforms outside of Twitter also responded. For example, Google temporarily turned off its Twitter carousel in the search feature because of security issues. Meanwhile, Twitter's stock price dropped by 4% that same day after the markets closed. By the following day, the stock price ended slightly lower at $36.40, down 38 cents overall. Experts said the scam didn't cause huge money losses, but it showed how dangerous tricks like this can be. Security experts warned that if hackers could control social media, it might lead to bigger problems. This was really scary with the 2020 US presidential election coming up. Alex Stamos from Stanford University said Twitter's weaknesses were a big problem since it's so important for political talks and decisions. After the incident, Twitter improved its security measures. They delayed rolling out a new API and instead focused on implementing new rules to prevent similar attacks. By September, they said they had added stricter background checks for employees with access to important data. They also gave phishing-resistant security keys to workers and provided better training to help employees recognize and handle future social engineering schemes. This Twitter hack revealed lessons that applied far beyond one platform. One of the most immediate takeaways was the importance of rapid response. In many cases, account owners only realize their Twitter profiles have been compromised within minutes of the fraudulent posts going live. Those who reacted quickly were able to limit the damage and reduce how far the scam spread. But the deeper issue was people. The attackers didn't break through firewalls first, they targeted employees. They manipulated staff members who had access to internal tools and systems. And that became the weakest point in the entire chain. The lesson was clear. Training teams to recognize manipulation, pressure tactics, and deception is just as important as technical defenses. because a single mistake can open the door to everything. And finally, there's a harder truth to accept. None of the high-profile accounts involved did anything wrong. Yet they were still compromised. No system is completely immune, not even the biggest platforms in the world. And assuming otherwise is where the real risk begins. The 2020 Twitter Bitcoin scam was about how easily trust can be turned into a weapon inside Twitter. No malware, no complex breach of encryption, just people being manipulated from the inside. What made this attack so dangerous was its simplicity. A few convincing messages, a few compromised employees, and access to the right tools at the right time. And in the end, it revealed that the biggest vulnerability in any system isn't always the technology. It's the human element behind it. Because once trust is exploited at scale, even the most powerful platforms can be turned against themselves.